Greetings, Internet, YouTube, wrestling fans. It is I, Matty Clark, here in the Music Conservatory of Casa de Clark with Max the Wonder Dog to give you my impressions of Hell in a Cell 2016. I am going to be doing reviews of pay-per-views, stuff like that. I decided to do it last night after watching Hell in a Cell. I thought everybody else does it, why not me? So I'm going to give you my opinions on how well the Hell in a Cell 2016 pay-per-view went down. This is the first of these type of reviews. I'm going to review the pay-per-view with the 5 Clark review system. 1 Clark means that it was shit. I wouldn't bother watching this. If I was going to download it illegally, I wouldn't bother downloading it illegally. That's how bad. 5 Clarks means I would pay extra to watch this pay-per-view again. It was that good. 3 Clarks, average. Hell in a Cell 2016. On the whole, what do you think, Max? What do you think of Hell in a Cell 2016? What do you think? No opinion? He's a great, yeah, lick me in the ear. He's a great sidekick. On a whole, Hell in a Cell 2016, I give a 3. Wasn't the worst pay-per-view I've ever seen. Wasn't the best pay-per-view I've ever seen. But it was definitely an averagely decent pay-per-view. None of the matches I thought, except for maybe one, were really go out of your way to watch them. Maybe 2 were worth. Yeah, I gave it a 3. We'll go through the matches here. Let me see. I have some notes I made on the matches over here on the old computer. The show started out with a 6-man, on the preview show, started out with a 6-man cruiserweight tag team match. Sin Cara, Lince Dorado, Cedric Alexander versus Drew Gulak, Tony Nese, and a guy named Daivari, which I'm not sure if that guy is actually related to the Daivari from TNA and back in the day from WWE. I'm not quite sure. Good match. It was a pre-show match, but a good match. I have a problem with cruiserweights in WWE. My problem is that the WWE is treating cruiserweights as if they were a separate show. In other words, they're not part of Raw, or they're exclusive to Raw, but they're not actually part of Raw or SmackDown. They're their own thing. I don't like that. WCW didn't do cruiserweights that way. Neither does New Japan or other organizations who have a cruiserweight division. They have a title, and WWE should have a title, but those guys should be able to mix around. One of the great things about New Japan Pro Wrestling back in the day is they used to have cruiserweights and heavyweights tagged together against each other. Like Chris Benoit, whose name I shouldn't be saying because he's horrible, would wrestle with Keiji Muto versus Hase and Jushin Thunder Liger. 4 of the greats from their weight divisions, going at it. That's what WWE should do. Brian Kendrick should tag with Kevin Owens, and TJ Perkins should tag with Seth Rollins. Great match. Be an awesome match. Great match on Raw. Probably never happened, though. I think they're going to keep those guys separated in their own little world, which I think is a mistake. Because I'm not a big fan of the entire split to begin with. I think it was a bad job, bad idea, but that's just me. Good opening match, though. Unfortunately, I have a bad idea. What the hell was that? I have a bad idea that WWE is going to start having a cruiserweight match, a typical cruiserweight match. That worries me, to be quite honest. Up next on the pay-per-view, the actual pay-per-view started with Roman Reigns and Rusev and their Hell in a Cell match. If you're going to have 3 main events, this is rant number 2, by the way. If you're going to have 3 main events, my suggestion to WWE is main event number 1 would be at 7. My time, pay-per-views run from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I'm Central Standard Time in America. 7 o'clock, the first hour. The first main event headlines that first hour. So 7:30, whatever. You have the first main event. Second main event, 8:30, quarter to 9, whatever. Third main event, close the show. They didn't do it that way. They kind of, in a way, did that. They started the show with the first main event, Rusev and Reigns. I will make a confession, if you will. I'm not a big fan of either one of these guys. I prefer wrestlers, not brawlers, when it comes to what I watch in the ring. If I want to watch brawling, I'll watch MMA. It's real, at least, when I watch MMA. I'm not a big fan of 200-300-pound guys throwing fake punches for a half an hour, which is darn near what this match turned out to be. Just a basic fist fight with some weaponry thrown in here and there. Didn't need a cell. I have a problem with Hell in a Cell anyway, because to me, Hell in a Cell is a match that's supposed to be vicious and brutal. And WWE will never have a match that lives up to that kind of name ever again, in my opinion. So, Hell in a Cell and me have issues to begin with, in this day and age. This would have been a better match, in my opinion, if there would have been no cage. It just would have been straight no DQ, and Rusev and Reigns had an old school ECW tear the building apart, end up in the parking lot wrestling on top of a car type of match. That's what they need. They need to get away from from cages, all this stuff, and just tear apart a building. Just go out in the crowd and just beat the shit out of each other in the crowd for a half an hour. That would have been more entertaining than what I saw, in my opinion. Some lackluster weaponry. Although the chain segment, Rusev got a chain and started beating the living dog crap out of Roman Reigns with a chain. That wasn't too bad. The kendo stick is overdone. And plus, nobody got a kendo stick to the head, which WWE doesn't allow anymore. Which is why I don't understand why Hell in a Cell exists. If we're worried about concussions, you shouldn't have a Hell in a Cell match to begin with, in my opinion. That's like having a no-rules match and having it end in a pinfall in the middle of the ring from like a roll-up. Doesn't work for me. Roman won from a spear, which I got problems with again, because they beat the snot out of each other and it ends on a spear. Whatever. Anyway, that was the match. Not a huge fan of it, as you can probably tell. And up next was Bayley and Dana Brooke. Pretty much a Raw. I think Bayley is a good wrestler. I think she's probably one of the better female wrestlers in WWE right now. Haven't seen enough of Dana Brooke to really see how good she is. She might be a great wrestler. I just don't know myself. I haven't seen her go that much. So I can't. It was pretty much by the numbers. Standard Raw match. Nothing to write home to Ma about. I'm not going to talk about it that much. Enzo Amore, Big Cass versus Anderson and Gallows. First off, Anderson and Gallows are being wasted. If you ever watched them wrestle in Japan, what they did with the Bullet Club in Japan, this is a waste of Anderson and Gallows. Quite frankly, the WWE has no idea what to do with them, to be quite honest. They don't look like WWE wrestlers. They don't wrestle like WWE wrestlers. I'm assuming they're using them to try and get Cass and Enzo some seasoning, because they are great wrestlers in the ring. Maybe some talking points. I'm not quite sure. It was a good match for what it was. Again, kind of a by the numbers Enzo and Cass match. Again, nothing to write home about. It was solid, but not remarkable. I'll put it that way. Anderson and Gallows won, which they needed desperately to get some credibility back after being embarrassed by the New Day, who I'll talk about here in a few. Next match, Hell in a Cell. Owens and Rollins, main event number 2. Good match. I've known about Kevin Owens for a long time. I started watching him back when he was in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla off the internet. Him and Sami Zayn, who was El Generico at the time, wrestled in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla back in the day. Been a big fan of Kevin Steen's work for a long time. I've seen him in various internet wrestling groups. Pro Wrestling Syndicate, I think, was one of them. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I think I saw him in CZW a couple of times. Ring of Honor, obviously. He was huge in Ring of Honor. Deserves to be in WWE, in my opinion. Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, whatever you want to call him. Seth Rollins, I was never a huge Seth Rollins fan back when he was in Ring of Honor. He was a good wrestler. He's very solid. He's decent on the mic now compared to when I saw him back in the day. I had high expectations for this match. Really high expectations. So high that I don't think WWE would let them two live up to those expectations because of the in-ring style of WWE these days. It was a good match. The ending sucked. Chris Jericho got involved. How he got involved, you'll find out about, I'm sure, on Raw. And he was instrumental to the end of the match. They didn't sell the back as much as I thought they would. There was one huge spot in the middle of it involving a powerbomb out of the ring through a bunch of pieces of furniture. It was a good match. The ending sucked. I shouldn't say it sucked. It just came out of nowhere. Seth Rollins got powerbombed on 2 chairs that were opened up, and side by side he powerbombed him through the seat of the chairs. Mick Foley's done that spot a billion times, so has Terry Funk. ECW did that spot a lot. You've seen it a lot. Just wasn't really impressed with the ending of the match. I thought the ending was kind of... It shocked the live crowd, too, if you watched the live crowd. They weren't expecting that ending either. But overall, a pretty good match. It was good stuff. Too much Jericho, though, in my opinion. He should have got the win using the back without the help. That much help from Jericho, I think. But what do I know? Decent match, though. After that came Kendrick and Perkins for the Cruiserweight title. Very solid Cruiserweight match. Again, I've got a bad feeling that WWE is going to create this formula for Cruiserweight matches. Very good back and forth. Kendrick won the title. You heard about it on Raw, I'm sure. Deserved to win. Kendrick's a great performer. I've seen him in the independents since he left WWE. He's got nothing but better, in my opinion. I'm glad to see Kendrick got the title. He needed it. Perkins doesn't. They need a great talker to sell that division, and TJ Perkins is a tremendous in-ring performer. Watched him for years on the internet through various promotions. Is an incredible performer in the ring, but is not as charismatic as you'd want him to be. Then again, not a lot of those cruiserweights are very charismatic to begin with. Sorry. So we will see how that one goes on. They're going to get a rematch tonight on Raw, by the way. So you'll probably hear about it a lot. After that came the New Day, Sheamus and Cesaro match. Cesaro is, in my opinion, one of the top 5 in-ring wrestlers in the world over the last 10 years. And I will fight you in a pit to the death with a trident over that. I think he is. I've watched him wrestle Chikara. I saw him wrestle in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I've seen him wrestle in Ring of Honor. His tag team with Chris Hero, Cassius Ohno in NXT, if you remember him. They were the Kings of Wrestling. Just amazing matches. Cesaro is probably one of the best tag team wrestlers in wrestling today. His tag team with Sheamus is actually pretty solid. The match itself was not bad. I think the weak spot in that whole group is Xavier Woods. I was never a big fan of his in TNA. Still not a big fan of his. I think Kofi's a great athlete. He wasn't in the match. I'm gonna give you, this is a big spoiler here. Sheamus and Cesaro won the match by DQ. One of the worst endings to a championship match I've seen in a long time. Sheamus took the trombone while Cesaro had Xavier Woods in the sharpshooter, and Xavier started to tap. As he was tapping, Sheamus whacked Big E in the head with the trombone, and then Kofi from behind hit Sheamus with the Trouble in Paradise flip kick. The referee saw it and disqualified New Day. Yeah, horrible ending. A lot of these matches have either endings I don't understand or just horrible endings together altogether. This was one of the horrible endings. Terrible ending to the match. The crowd there was pissed. They were not happy about the ending either. Just a horrible ending. To a good match. It was a very good match. Cesaro and Sheamus are actually a very good team. If they got rid of this stupid storyline that they're in and let them be a team, they would be a very fun team to watch. But unfortunately, it's Vince. Finally, the main event. Sasha and Charlotte, Hell in a Cell. First women's Hell in a Cell match. First women's match to ever headline a major pay-per-view in WWE history. When it comes to main events of a pay-per-view, I believe either the match has to be a great match, or at least a match that people get excited to see. It may not be a great technical match, but the emotion of the match is big enough people want to see it. That way you respect the people that worked underneath of your match. The main event should make the other matches on the show highlighted. It should highlight what came before it, in other words. Sasha and Charlotte knocked it out of the park. And I am not a fan of women's wrestling. The only women's wrestling I ever really watched was women's Japanese wrestling. New Japan women's wrestling. Some of the most brutal shit you'll ever watch. These women in Japan absolutely kill each other. I've seen some matches in New Japan wrestling that make you go, Mother of God, how the hell is she still living after that move she just took? Sasha and Charlotte knocked it out of the park. One of the best matches inside Hell in a Cell that I've seen, regardless of gender. I gotta give a big tip of the hat to Sasha and they beat the living shit out of each other. For as much as Rusev and Roman did it, they did it and then wrestled on top of it, which is how I want to watch a brawl. I want to see two people beat the snot out of each other and then put each other in some of the most horrific submission-type moves you've ever seen. Sasha and Charlotte pulled that off. They used the cell well. They used the cell in some innovative ways. They weren't putting their bodies at terrible amounts of risk. Sasha sold a back injury very well. Kind of hokey how the match started. But Sasha took some nasty shots. I give Charlotte credit. She looked like a complete monster. For a female wrestler to come out and look like a complete monster in a match takes a lot. And Charlotte pulled it off. I've never seen her dad pull off matches like that, to be honest with you. Great match. If any match on the show, that's the one you should go out of your way to see, in my opinion. So, to sum up, as a full show, I'll give it 3 Clarks out of 5. I wouldn't go out of my way to find this pay-per-view. If you got the WWE Network, watch the replay if you didn't watch it live. It's worth watching the replay. You can fast forward through a couple of the matches and not miss anything. The Hell in a Cell matches were at least decent, if not great. They actually get better as you go down the card. The first match is eh. Second match, very good. Third match, Sasha and Charlotte knocked it out of the park. They were worth the main event. They deserved the main event. They worked their asses off. One of the stiffest. That's the kind of Hell in a Cell match I want to watch. Doesn't need blood. What it needs, though, is for you to watch it and go, holy Christ, what are they doing to each other? Sasha and Charlotte pulled that off. I watched that match going, yeesh, that looks bad. That looks really painful. And great match. Congrats to Charlotte and Sasha. I'm proud of you. Not that you care what I think, but great match. And that's my rundown of Hell in a Cell 2016. Thoughts, questions, put them down below. Subscribe if you want to see more of these. I'll probably do one once in a while as Survivor Series comes up, as the Survivor Series card begins taking shape. I am not a wrestling insider. I have no information for you. I cannot tell you secrets. If you want to know about stuff like that, there's a great website called pwinsider.com. They're a great wrestling website. I recommend going there. If you want to know more about wrestling, I will be happy to give you my opinions, though, if asked. This is Matt Clark. Music Conservatory, Independence, Iowa. You have a good rest of your day, or whenever you're watching this video, and I will see you soon. Clark out.